Raquel. And hello,
Hi.
everybody. It is awesome to see so many names that I recognize. And I know we have people on this call who've won pitch competitions too, Marissa, Mike. So we'll have some experience here as well. Let me just screen share my slides and get ready to participate to some degree. Oh, let me share sound because we are going to watch an example of a pitch. If you aren't meant to be in the art of the ask, crafting your pitch, then you're in the wrong place. We have a lot of workshops going on at Change Labs these days. It used to be that we had maybe one or two a month, but now I don't know if you all have noticed, but last month and this month, there's been multiple every week. And that's because of that loan program. We're just trying to make more tools and more knowledge and more resources available as much as possible. As Raquel said, I'm Heather, for those of you I haven't met yet. And I am the executive director, originally from Tuba City, but I grew up mostly in Vanderwagen, just outside of Gallup. And my background is in the design of new products and new services. I don't know how I ended up leading this nonprofit. It's a long and winding story, but that's what my formal training is in. You know what? Change Labs is designing services all the time, so I think it absolutely makes sense for me. I don't know why I said that, but sometimes I wondered how I end up where I am. We have a treat for you all who are in today's session, a treat in the sense that you get access to early/private information. The information being is that we're going to host, I think this could formally be our first public pitch event. Mark your calendars for July 11th. And the second tidbit of information that only you all have access to now is that it'll be at part of the grand opening for our Shiprock eShip Hub this summer. We're putting about 20,000 of our own money behind this pitch to award the best pitches. So I hope the content today is actionable, that you guys can take this and maybe bring it to our pitch event in July and win some of that award money. So speaking of this is what I really hope you all will take away from our session today. One, first and foremost, is that you'll walk away hopefully knowing how to craft a clear and compelling pitch. And maybe if you already have a deck and you haven't used it in a while or you need to dust it off, that I think today's conversation could still help. The second is how to think about adapting pitches for a specific audience. I think rare is the situation where you're talking to the same person every single time. We'll talk about what those different stakeholders look like and how you might change up your slides or change up your messaging or change up your stories depending on who you're talking to. And then the last thing we'll talk about is just the delivery of the pitch itself, how you can project confidence, things that you might want to be mindful of that you're subconsciously doing, how to monitor those things and how to look out for them. What I'm going to ask you all to do, though, I mean, this is a pitch workshop, so you can't be that surprised, is I would love for you all, especially since we are a small group. I saw a few more people enter, but I think, it's a lot of our alumni. We're still a relatively small group, is if you all could introduce yourself, your business or your organization, or if you don't have anything yet, your idea. The challenge here being you only have one sentence. And if you're feeling a little shy right now, or you're chewing on a sandwich, you can write it in the chat window. That's absolutely fine. In fact, let me pull up the chat window so I don't miss things myself. So please take to the chat or unmute yourself and deliver your elevator pitch.
I can go. Yeah, everyone. Shea Vanessa Tulian Shaki, Ani Nishlin, Tatnizani Bashichin, Twitzoni Dashache, Talini Dashanella. I own and operate Aichaha Shidina Home Care, and we help the elderly and adult disabled members with in-home non-medical caregiving services across many of the tribal communities in the state of Arizona.
Thank you, Vanessa. Who else would like to go?
Sorry, I'm confused. Do you mean like bringing the idea of a pitch right now?
No, just for Albert, you would say, well, hi, I'm Albert, and this is my business, and this is why it's cool.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah, my name is Albert. I'm the founder and CEO of Najon Studios. We primarily focus on software development and digital media that aims to revitalize and reconnect Navajo youth.
Wonderful. I love that. Very well done. I was trying to think of what I would say if I was you, and I couldn't do it that fast, but that was great. Who else would like to share their elevator pitch?
Could it even be a pitch of a business of what we're planning to start?
Yes, if you're still in the idea stage, maybe think through or just share the one sentence version of what you're planning to start.
Okay, I'm trying to think.
Hey, this is Nick. I can just jump in real quick.
Go ahead, Nick.
Okay, so this is Nick Smith from Shiprock, and I do operate a small print shop. We do T-shirts, stickers, banners. Trying to dive into more canvas work and stuff like that, and larger reprints, and also like some stuff that covers exterior windows. And I guess just excites me about this is like there's always new products that come out, so it's like a new machine or something, or like a new product that helps customers do whatever they need to do, whether it's cover their image of their outside glass of their displays, or walls, big stickers, anything like that. So trying to dive into bigger and better projects to work on. But also aside, I DJ, and we also started a podcast a while back, and so kind of gaining knowledge into producing some of that, going live and sharing stories and whatever else. But it's all still brand new. Everything's still, I'm still learning. There's plenty more to dive into and get creative with out there. But that's just me and what is going on in the business right now.
Congrats, Nick. I didn't know you were working on that. That's great.
Thanks.
Would anybody else like to go? Well, then I'll move along, but don't get too comfortable because this is a pitch workshop. So I'm going to ask you all to pitch again in another few minutes. And I'm going to ask you to change up your pitch the next time around. Because there's so many alumni on this call, alumni of our incubator program specifically, I kind of feel silly with this slide, but I should keep it open. But why even bother? Why a pitch? I could come up with a few reasons, but I know there are some experienced pitchers on this call. So if there's something that you in your experience feel is really relevant that you want to share with other small business owners around why it's critical to put a pitch deck or just a verbal pitch together, please do share it in the chat window. And there's a lot of small businesses on this call, or pretty much everybody, at least I know on this call, runs a small business. So I think it's great to share your own experience as well. But here's mine. The first is just, it's an opportunity to really clarify to others what it is that you're doing, and also to focus. Like, I'm going to pick on you a little bit, Nick. So when Nick shared what he did, he was like, I do this, I'm thinking about doing this, and I also do this on the side. That's great. I know Nick, but if he was talking to me as an investor, I'd want to know, like, what is the one thing that he's focused on? Because I'm hearing like, oh, he does a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this. What is it that he actually does? Sorry, Nick, I had to pick on you just to make my point here, but I felt comfortable doing that just because I know you. The other is, it's just an opportunity to build credibility. There's lots of business owners out there. There's lots of asks going on at any time, but how do you start to build trust and to validate yourself with your stakeholders? The third is, it's an opportunity to make a strong first impression. So if you have your pitch ready, you have your pitch at hand, and you can deliver it with confidence, I mean, that's a great first introduction. And the contrast to that is if you show up somewhere and maybe somebody does put you on the spot, like I'm doing to all of you, and you're not quite ready, you may lose that chance to make that strong first impression. And then the last one I put on here is just projecting confidence. As an entrepreneur, as somebody who's starting something and and being a leader, there might be a lot of uncomfortable things about that, or maybe some of you are uncomfortable with being labeled as a business owner or an entrepreneur, and that is absolutely okay. But when you're talking to a loan officer or an investor or someone that you want something from, I feel like working on this ability to turn that off so that you can get what you want from that person, project confidence, and get what you need is something that we all learn to do as business owners. And I think a pitch is a really mindful exercise in projecting that confidence or developing a pitch. We're gonna talk about the core of a pitch, and this is my opinion. So, and frankly, my opinion doesn't like dramatically differ from anything you would Google or ask ChatGPT. But I do encourage you all to explore all the different ways that different small business programs define the core elements of a pitch. Here's what I put together, and we'll go through examples of each of these. The first for me is the hook, then describing the problem, then what is your solution to the problem? What makes your solution unique, the value proposition? And then the last component is what do you want? Why are you giving this pitch? And we're going to talk about pitch decks a little bit later on, and I think that's where things tweak. But if I'm thinking like the fundamental aspects of the story that you're telling with your pitch, to me, this is it. What is the hook? How do you capture that audience right at the beginning? What is the problem you're trying to solve? How you're solving it? What makes it unique? And what do you need? What help do you want? So I'll put myself on the hook, and I'll do one for Change Labs. So here's my hook for Change Labs. What if the biggest barrier to starting a business wasn't a lack of ideas or ambition, but simply a lack of access? The problem that we're trying to solve at Change Labs for many Native entrepreneurs, getting a loan or securing a business location or even accessing fundamental business support is an uphill battle. And this is tricky because everyone on this call is probably a Native entrepreneur. You might know this just from your lived experience. But as the executive director, I have to go out and pitch to new donors all the time. And most of our donors are not in the Southwest. They're definitely not Native. Most of them are in urban areas. They have no idea that Native entrepreneurs on the reservation more or less have to play by a completely different set of rules than an entrepreneur who's off the reservation or in an urban area. So I usually have to spend a lot of time explaining the problem and why it exists and why it's complex. Solution, Change Labs is changing that. As the only Native-led business incubator and lending program on the Navajo and Hopi Nations, we provide accessible microloans, hands-on coaching, culturally relevant business support, right where it's needed most. What makes us unique? By investing in Native entrepreneurs, we're investing in the long-term economic sovereignty of Indigenous communities. And I might change up that value proposition depending on who I'm talking to. In this example, I was thinking specifically of some of our funders and the philanthropic organizations that we work with, and they all have different things that they're looking to fund. It could be economic justice, it could be entrepreneurship, it could be economic development in a whole, it could be small business development. So I might change that depending on who I'm speaking to. And then lastly, and I feel like I often see people leaving this out. And I get it, because sometimes we're just practicing the first parts of it. But I would never give a pitch without having an ask, or at least like a real one, maybe in practice, sure. So here's an ask. We're inviting partners, funders, and allies to join us in expanding this work. Whether through funding, technical assistance, or amplifying our mission, your support helps Indigenous entrepreneurs overcome systemic barriers and build businesses that sustain their families and communities. All right, that was me putting myself on the spot. Not really, because I did have time to think about it. But I would like all of you to share with the group your revised pitch using one of two frameworks. So you can use the framework that I just put out there. What is your hook? What is the problem you're solving? What is your solution? What makes it unique? And what do you need? Or if you're not quite there yet, I know we have some people on the call who aren't quite there yet. It could just be, hi, I'm so-and-so, founder of blank, or thinking about blank. What does your business do? Who do you do it for? And how does your business solve their problem? And if you're in the idea stage, you can just do your best to say, no one's going to punish you if you're still thinking it through. Now, the last time we did this in breakout rooms. So if you're here chewing lunch and you're just trying to be low key, I'm sorry, but this is not going to be a low key session. But I do think this is the only time I'm going to ask you guys to go into breakout rooms. I'm pretty sure of that. So I'll ask you all to just at least make it through this one exercise. Okay, let me find breakout rooms. And we won't be in here too long either. How many people are on the call? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Why don't we just do, we'll do pairs. Actually, it might be kind of cool to do threes. So I'm going to assign manually, and I'm just going to start moving you all into rooms. Albert, should I put the alumni? I'm going to put Albert and Delphina together. And I'm going to put Jacob Crane. Oh, Jacob, no. Goldie. I'm going to put Goldie and Jacob together. They probably already know each other. And I'm going to put Marissa and Vanessa together. Probably two very experienced pitchers. Wade, I'm going to put you with Nick. And then Lami, I'm going to put you with Micaiah Charlie. And then Guy, I'm going to put you in a room. Actually, I'll put you in there as well. Okay. The rooms are opening. Please feel free. I'll put this challenge in the chat. See you guys in a few minutes. Don't forget to copy and paste the frameworks before doing this. Let me see if I can just type it really fast. Did any of you want to go into breakouts? Feel free. I think you can just join, since you're probably all co-hosts, and just to see and watch some of them. But if not, let me know and I can put you in one.
I'm good.
I'm gonna join room 4.
I might join some too. I'm just going to do the frameworks. Oh, Raquel, how is that team doing? Do you think they're about done?
Goldie was sharing hers, and Jacob was just about to give feedback.
Oh, they're doing feedback even. They share with feedback. Okay, well then maybe I'll give them another 3 minutes.
Okay.
Sophia, how were your two people doing? Did they seem like they were about done, or they still need more time?
They're about done. Or they're
Oh.
done.
Oh, wow, they're done.
They're
Okay.
talking about personal life now. So like, I'm gonna get out. Have you recovered, Heather?
Recovered?
Yeah.
Oh, from Vegas? Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that's good.
I didn't realize that poor Raquel and Marcia got stuck there for an extra day.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that there was even that much weather. There was no weather between Vegas and Denver. It was very seamless.
that's good. I'm
In
glad
fact,
you got home.
yeah, I even got home like 15 minutes early because there was just no people and the weather was good.
That's so good. In Harper, she's doing better.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to,
I think everybody's ready.
okay, I'm going to close the rooms. Oh, I should have given them a warning. I'm sorry. I meant to turn on the timer. My bad. I hate it when people do that to me, so I apologize. Very abrupt. Did anybody need to like finish their sentence or something like that? I'm sorry, Vanessa. Vanessa's very shocked.
No.
Okay. All right. How did that go? Did you all get a chance before I abruptly pulled you out?
My room was talking about the hook and how do you essentially start building the hook. I think we're great essentially of introducing ourselves, what we know our business to be, essentially really kind of understanding that this is who I am, this is where I come from, but it's the hook that's the hardest thing to develop.
Sophia thinks that's funny. We should have a workshop just on like testing out your hooks. We're not going to talk more about hooks in this session, unfortunately, but I'm taking that feedback, especially as we gear up for our pitch event in Shiprock. Why, if you have more thoughts and comments, please feel free to type them in the chat. I'm going to just keep moving us along because I'm remembering now that this workshop went kind of long last time. So I need to mentally remind myself to not spend so much time talking. I think we should watch an example of a pitch video, a winning pitch video that did really well. Marissa, I thought about hunting down your pitch video, but we are going to use an example from Powwow Pitch. And I think I got to click on it. And I think I have sound enabled.
Hi, my name is Tina Archuleta. I am the owner and founder of Vitality Plant-Based Foods. I am from Jemez, Pueblo, New Mexico. We are one of the 19 pueblos in New Mexico. And this Vitality Plant-Based Foods is the first and only Native woman-owned, Native vegan restaurant in the United States. I started my business in 2018 to address the health disparities that I was seeing in Native community. In 2018, my average monthly revenue was $1,700. In October of 2022, last year, I opened my first brick and mortar, and our current monthly average sales have increased by 90%. All tax revenue generated by my business returns to the 19 pueblos of New Mexico. Currently, my business has 4 streams of revenue, which include my storefront, my wholesale services, catering, and educational services that I offer to Native organizations and Native community. With this $25,000, I would use it to purchase a delivery vehicle, and this would help me expand my services to Native communities that are located in rural places. And I want to mention that 80% of New Mexico is considered rural. So a lot of the tribal communities are located in what is known as a food desert with little to no access to healthy fresh food options. So with the delivery vehicle, it would help me expand my services, offer more educational services across all New Mexico to the 22 tribes. And currently, I should mention next month in October, I have 2 workshop demonstrations for 2 elementary schools in Gallup, New Mexico, where I will be teaching K through 5 age students about plant-based eating and culturally relevant plant-based food options. So will you invest in my mission to cultivate wellness in Indigenous community with locally sourced plant-based food and education? Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you. Thank you all. That was a lot to take in. And hi, my name is Tina Archuleta. I am
Sorry. Okay, question for you all. What do you think worked well in her pitch? And also, what do you think could have been better? You can type in the chat or you can unmute yourself. It's up to you.
I think what helped her is she talked about being the first and then also having a brick and mortar and then going into education and then how she wants to expand. I think those were all good parts in her pitch.
I agree. Thanks, Goldie. Leander says her brand business. Leander, if you have more on that, I'd love to know what you mean.
just her talking about her business and how she started out small and how she expanded. I thought that was pretty neat. So
Yes, and Delphina, she hits on one of the things that stood out for me too, is that she shares actual data, her financial numbers. I also loved her 80% of New Mexico is rural. I thought that was really compelling. What else? Was there anything that you all thought could be better? I have one, but I'm going to hold on to it.
Ooh, me too.
Well, I think it was just the tone of her delivery. Like it was just very like kind of monotone, kind of like the way I talk. It would have been nice to see a lot of kind of emotion in her delivery.
What about you, Jacob?
Sometimes I think I don't know if she was reading off of something, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people do that, but I feel like with this type of situation, I think maybe practicing it over and over and over and over again until you can like wake up in the morning and literally pitch, and not pitch, but I think I learned this from SoCap is have a conversation about it. You know, like be very comfortable and when there's moments where you have to, you know what I mean? Because I think sometimes people get into this like framework of like pitching all the time, and folks know when you're pitching. Now, again, this is a pitch competition, so like in this setting, totally 100% pitch. But I feel like maybe remove the screen in front of her, or maybe the notes. I don't know. That's just my two cents.
Yeah, you lose a little authenticity when people can tell you're maybe reading something. But I agree. Like if that's what you need just to get going, then please do it. Anybody else have any? We can unleash you, Holly. I know you had an idea. Go ahead and share.
And then there's also lots of comments in the chat.
Oh, okay. All right. Go ahead, Holly. I'll look at the comments in the chat.
Yeah, I think if anything, her background was a little distracting. I think it was cool to see that she was actually in her kitchen space, but to have people kind of working in the background, it slightly essentially took me from her words and more of like wondering what the background person was working on. But I think it's wonderful to have yourself positioned in the place that you work and so that you could reference back to it of being like, I am physically in the space that I'm at. But I think while having essentially too much of a dynamic background could be a little distracting and pull people from the words that you're saying. So that's my note to Tina. But also, too, just want to put out there, Tina has grown so much from the first time that she's pitched. She's been pitching over, I think, at least 2,000 times at this point. So she always has said, like, practice constantly makes her better and that she always essentially reworks her pitch every single time she does it. So yeah, Tina's great.
In the chat we have, she was clear and concise, agree with some of the notes about her tone. Speech delivery was a bit rushed. Video angle making her forehead big. I like that. And then we had, just a note that she did a great job of projecting confidence. This is great. And for my one, I agree with all of the feedback that everybody gave. My one note, and we're going to talk about this later, is that she has at least in this video, she's got a little bit of upspeak when she talks. And that's one of my peeves, especially with public speaking. And if you don't know what upspeak is, we're actually gonna talk about that a little bit later on. But I feel like that can sometimes be a distraction, or it can come across as less confident because it's like you're phrasing everything like a question. You're questioning everything that you're saying. But thank you guys for participating in that. I think it is really a helpful exercise to either watch pitches or to watch examples of people who do a lot of public speaking, like some of the really good TED Talks and things like that. You get a sense of good storytelling, good delivery. I mean, multiple people brought up the tone, the cadence of your speech, talking too fast, talking too slow. Those are all things that can be learned through practice. Let's talk about building a pitch deck. Tina noticeably did not use a pitch deck. I don't know how Powwow Pitch works. Maybe they told her she couldn't, or maybe she wanted to just drive it home by actually being in the physical space where she does her work. For whatever reasons, there was no pitch deck, so we couldn't really analyze that. So let's look at a framework for what that looks like. A pitch deck doesn't need to be complicated, first and foremost. In fact, I would say that a simple and focused deck with just a few key slides is far more compelling than an overwrought, wordy, bulleted deck with no pictures. This is a very simple narrative to guide your deck if you don't have one. So first slide, tap into your inner storyteller. Every compelling business is solving some sort of problem. What is the problem that you see in the world? And sometimes I do think that people overthink this. I think they feel that they have to be solving like some big global issue in order to be effective, but that's not true. Some of the most interesting problems that businesses solve, in retrospect, maybe feel very small or trivial, but they lead to very powerful businesses. So for me, Uber is an example of that, or Airbnb. These are businesses that are solving problems that we didn't even know we had until they came into existence. A second segue into your solution. Explain your service or your product. How does it solve the problem that you identified? Third, who is your target customer? And what is the size of the market that this customer represents? Fourth, explain what your company does and give an overview of your strategy. Fifth, show how your company is different from its competitors or how it's relevant to your audience. Why should this audience that you're speaking to care in the first place? Six, what do your financial projections look like? How are you going to make money over time? That argument alone, I think some people will find the most compelling piece of what you have to say. So don't leave it out. Seven, what unique experience, perspective, skills, or qualifications make you the best person to lead this business? And then eighth, of course, is your ask. What do you want from this audience? What do you want them to do? We're going to look at another example, and this one is from our most recent incubator. I've got to switch slides here really fast because I wasn't clever enough to build it in beforehand. So this deck was put together on behalf of one of our incubator members. And she's a graphic designer, Cindy Tischilly. So if you're looking at this deck and you're like, I could never, I mean, she's one of the most talented native graphic designers in the country. So you don't have to hold yourself to this standard. Hopefully you all can see it now. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to that. But this is for a company run by Cody Artists. The company is called Artist Forge. He also had some great photography, thanks to Change Labs. But that I feel like his brand photography really brings this pitch deck to life. So she starts, this wasn't in my 8 template, but you always should start with what is the business name? What is your name? Is there a photograph that kind of captures the business? I love what she picked here. I mean, the name of the business is Artist Forge, and the first thing you see is a forge. She talks through the problem. I love how she makes, it's a 1-sentence problem, but then she uses a stat. And she uses 2 stats, in fact, and then she calls out a little bit more information. And if I were Cody, I would probably speak to these, but not read them off. Then they move into what is the solution? How is he solving this problem? Who are his customers? I love how he defines multiple different types of customers that he's appealing to. He's not isolating himself to just one market. He's picked a few that he feel are relevant. I also like this layout for a business model. I think often if we're thinking about explaining our business model in one slide, we may default to bullets. And I love how she's used simple icons that we can all get for free now from resources like Noun Project, and just made like a nice little linear diagram of how that business works. And then they've complemented it a little bit with his startup strategy. They also included a slide on his competition, who they're competing against, and what makes them different from the competition, who his team is, including his dog and his wife, and his financial strategy, what some of his financial goals are, what he needs to do that. He doesn't necessarily close with an ask, but I'll forgive because this wasn't an actual deck that he used. This was one that was built as an example. But then, of course, a thank you slide and how to contact him, a QR code. I wanted to show this example because it actually represents a real business in our community. I thought the communication was very clear and clean. If you felt the slides were sparse, then you don't know Cody. Cody could take something like this and fill in all the gaps with telling stories. He's a great speaker. So I think this is a great deck for him. Now, if any of you, I'm going to move on to the next slide, and I'm going to switch slides again really fast. So give me just a second here. But the question I have for you, and I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the chat right now, but I'll look at that in just a little sec, is who do you anticipate that you will be pitching to within the next year or so? You can go ahead and write in the chat, but I'm just trying to get a sense of the diversity of audience that we have here. Let me pull up the chat. A startup business loan. Oh yeah, that's a really good. So you're probably, who is this, Lalami, maybe pitching to or explaining your business to a loan officer. Oh, Mackenzie's going to be pitching to kids, families, and sponsors. That's a very unique audience. Does anybody else anticipate putting a pitch together, and who might that audience be? Funders, potential collaborators for Vanessa. That's a great, because it's very common. And I think that your pitch would probably change between collaborators and funders. Delphina, local Northern Arizona small business organization. If anybody are going to join the Change Labs pitch, you could say to Change Labs. But this is great. Thank you for sharing. I think this is good examples of the diversity in different types of audiences that you could be pitching to. So this may be a little bit of a redundant question, but will your pitch be the same for the different audiences that you have identified? I'm trying to get a sense of, Delphina is going to be pitching at the Economic Summit next month. Goldie to local business owners, city officials, Debbie Mike to schools. Do you all feel that you're going to change your pitch? Like Delphina, would you give the same pitch at the Economic Summit that you would to the small business development group that you're talking to? Maybe you would, but I'm curious.
Probably just a little bit. I want to focus on on the Navajo Economic Summit, just how we're despair, there's no infrastructure, how I want to focus like a lot of our small native Navajo businesses are capable of working with no infrastructure and envision that. That's kind of, I'm still trying to figure out how to make that image versus the other one is like a Coconino County pitch competition. So it's mixed with native and non-native owners. So I kind of have to be cognizant of how to present it. I don't want to be too minority or too native led. I don't know. I don't know if that's, I don't know. I think with what our new administration is, it kind of makes me like, I have to kind of tweak it a little now. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. I hadn't thought about that, but I bet that's weighing on quite a bit of small business owners right now. The sense that I'm getting, and I'm glad that we don't need to spend too much time on this, is that your pitch should adapt for different audiences. So I have some examples here. If you're pitching to a peer, maybe you're highlighting shared goals, synergies. Whereas if you're pitching to somebody who you want money from, you might want to emphasize financial details or social impact, or if it's a loan, that you have a strong repayment plan. If it's to a potential customer or partner, highlight the benefits to each of you in a collaboration. So we have not that long left, and I want to make sure we hit that third point. There's some realities of delivering a pitch that you can't just talk about the mechanics of it, but also it's an emotional roller coaster. So I also want to make sure that we spend equal time talking about delivery and the confidence piece. I'm curious though, if you can again take to the chat, you don't need to use your voice if you're getting tired of me making you talk. What's your biggest challenge with pitching? Do you get nervous? Are you like me? Do you tend to wander off script? Is it the time limit? Because most pitches do, you have like a specific amount of time and that's it. So is being succinct a challenge for you? Is it the confidence piece? Is it you've never actually pitched before, so you don't even know what your challenge is yet? Or maybe something else that I haven't hit on here. Okay, so Mackenzie says she gets nervous and she repeats herself. I definitely know that. Wow, Vanessa's confident. I've seen Vanessa pitch before, so I'm surprised at that one. You hide it well, I have to say. Who else has an A, B, or C? Raquel says talking too fast. Polly says, oh, just asking people for help. We're going to talk about that one. Anybody else have an A, B, C, or an F? Something new that's not on this list? Nervous. Yeah, nerves. It's a big one. I'm not going to talk about tips for that, but I'm making a mental note that maybe we can. Clarity. Ah, yes, Albert. Yes. So I am going to talk now just a little bit about the delivery portion and some of just the simple things that we can do. Thank you, Goldie, to debug your delivery. And some of these may feel a little bit obvious, but keep in mind what we're seeing in the chat. There's a lot of nervousness that comes with giving a pitch, and vulnerability. And when you're in that emotional state, I think it can be challenging to forget simple things like, are you actually looking at the audience? Are you looking at the judges? Are you looking at the loan officer? Or are you so nervous that you have to look somewhere else in order to calm your nerves down? I do think it's important that we make eye contact. So if you have to, I think practicing in front of somebody who's safe, like your children or your partner or family members, friends, so you can work on that eye contact, will make it a little bit easier. The second is what you guys have already flagged, a few of you. The cadence of your speech. Are you talking too fast? Are you talking too slow? It is such a thing to talk too slow, but I think our tendency can be that we talk too fast. Just be mindful of how quickly you're going. One thing that I do, or I did early on, was I would time myself and then I would challenge myself to add another 30 seconds. And how much would I need to slow down to get it to 5 minutes instead of the 4.5 that I was coming in on? And just try to like teach myself how to slow down. Are your visuals competing with your pitch or are they supporting it? So things like too many slides, or maybe you have a good amount of slides, but everyone is just packed with text and you're kind of forcing your audience to read and listen to you at the same time, which is just mean. Or maybe you don't have any visuals. I really just, even if you're not a visual learner, most people are. So you have to account for that if you're using visuals or building slides. Excessive detail. So maybe you get nervous and so you start going on an anecdote and you get like really deep into the anecdote and you got to figure out how to pull yourself back out of that. Or maybe you offer too much information about how the business plan is going to work. And in doing that, you raise questions about supply chain. You didn't even mean to go in that direction. Unprofessional presentation. I mean, this could be a lot of things. It could be maybe how you're dressed, or maybe you had to roll out of bed that morning, or maybe your deck isn't really polished or put together. These are all things that we have to tend to when we're preparing a pitch. Boring storytelling. Wah, wah, wah. I like to think that we're all good storytellers at heart. And I like what Jacob said about having a conversation. And conversations are engaging. We all need to become good storytellers. And then the last thing I have here is poor design. I'm thinking specifically your pitch deck. And my example is multicolor Comic Sans. This is not the 1990s. Our pitch decks shouldn't look like they were built in even the 2000s. And especially with tools like Canva now, my colleague Holly on this call has a Canva workshop. I think it's coming up next week, right, Holly? But there's no reason to have a poorly designed pitch deck anymore. Let's move on. So this is what Jacob mentioned. Are you delivering via rote memorization? So I think there's a difference between learning your pitch so that you can just say it in your sleep versus memorizing it when people can tell that it was memorized. And I think the main way we can do that is if you become a robot. Like you're talking and then you blip, and then you can't remember what you were supposed to say next because it's so memorized, it's become unnatural and unauthentic. And it's a little bit hard to find that balance, but I love what both Holly and Jacob had to say is you want to be able to deliver it in such a way that it feels natural. And possibly the best way to do that is to just do it over and over and over and over and over again until you don't sound like a robot anymore and you still sound authentic. It's definitely a balance. Are you going off on tangents, over justifying, or just plain ranting? You'll lose your audience quickly if you're not, to, you know, Albert's point, providing clarity and focus. So staying on message is a trick in itself. Speaking tics, you all know, so blah, 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 so blah, 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 right? Or like, well, everything ending with like, or starting with like, or upspeak. Upspeak is, hi, my name is Heather, and I work at Change Labs. We all do it. It's hard to beat it back, but I think especially when you're delivering a pitch, even if that's naturally the way you talk, that's fine. But in a pitch, you really want to try and minimize those tics as much as possible because they are very distracting. And then the last one is jargon. We all do this. Trying to think of what ones for Change Labs. Oh, Change Labs, ESO, Entrepreneurship Support Organization. Not everybody knows what that is, but I'm sure all of your industries have some form of jargon, trying to leave that at the door as much as possible. But again, it depends on who your audience is. If you're talking to an audience where jargon is acceptable or even expected, then that's different. But I think it's always good to be mindful about the words that you choose. Now, I think we can't talk about pitches with also talking about a mindset for pitching. So Holly mentioned in the chat that something that makes her uncomfortable is asking for help. So let's talk about some of those things besides the mechanics, besides getting up in front of people and letting them judge you. The fundamental things that are uncomfortable about pitching and how you navigate those feelings. The main one that comes to me, we have to talk about scarcity mindset. A scarcity mindset stems from the belief that there will never be enough. If you know what I'm talking about, you probably know someone, a parent, a grandparent, or maybe it's even you, that exhibits these thoughts or behaviors. And it makes sense because for generations, Native people have been accustomed to limited supply, to hardship, so much so that it's not just a mindset, it's manifested in our tribal policies. And as an entrepreneur on the reservation, you can't just lease an office space to start a business like an entrepreneur might do off the reservation. You have to get permission from the chapter, from the grazing committee to secure a site lease. You have to endure these complex processes. And that manifestation contributes to thoughts like, oh, it's impossible, or the system is working against me. Now, why are we talking about this in a pitch workshop? Because the traditional pitch environment operates in a mindset of abundance, that ability or luxury to think about the future because your present is taken care of, or the ability to embrace and welcome change and not to fear it, to share information and ideas and not try and hide or protect your work. This is not simple stuff, by the way. This is a lot of like ingrained emotional trauma that people have. Besides the scarcity mindset, there are other aspects of a pitch that might feel challenging, and I'm going to show a few of those, but here's how a scarcity mindset might show up in your pitch. If you see competition instead of collaboration. We actually have a really good workshop on this on our YouTube channel that's run by Coffee Pot Farms. I can't think of her name right now. She's a council delegate. I'll find it later if any of you are interested. But she speaks to this very well. Or maybe stifling your own market expansion if you believe that resources and customers are so limited that you start hoarding opportunities. That could show up in how you talk about your business in your pitch. Inhibiting innovation and new thinking. Innovation thrives when you're open to learning, adapting, and sharing. And if you're exhibiting behaviors or speech that shows that you're closed or defensive, I think it might be difficult to feel that you are a creative problem solver, that you can be innovative. Let's talk about this mindset of self-promotion. A lot of us simply don't feel comfortable in sales mode, and a pitch is a sell. A pitch requires that you promote your ideas, your business, yourself. And when your business is heavily tied to your personal identity, this can be very difficult. For this reason, when I have to speak publicly about Change Labs, I like to think about the organization as its own living and breathing thing that's like over there. And I am simply the steward of Change Labs, that living, breathing thing. Change Labs is not me, and I am not it. And this separation helps me become an advocate, not a defender of our work. And it also just helps me feel proud of what Change Labs has accomplished, which in turn then helps me tell the story without feeling like I'm ingratiating myself. A pitch is also an ask, and if you are uncomfortable asking for help, then you'll miss that critical opportunity. Now, as a nonprofit leader, one of my main responsibilities at the organization is to ask for money, and I hate it. It makes me uncomfortable, just like self-promotion. But again, if I create separation between my identity and the organization, it does make it a little bit easier. I think about the people that work at Change Labs and all the entrepreneurs that use our services, and how if I'm able to get that money or that funding, it's going to benefit them. It's not about me at all. It's about Native entrepreneurs, and I am the steward representing the needs of Native entrepreneurs. And if I go into a meeting with a donor in that mindset, it helps. I mean, I feel like I could ask them for anything then. Let's talk about imposter syndrome. And this is my last slide because I see, oh no, that's a direct message, sorry. But I want to leave some time for us just to chat. Let's talk about imposter syndrome. This is that feeling you get when you look around the room and you feel like you don't belong, or like you don't deserve to be there, or that what you have to say isn't up to par, or maybe you censor your contributions to the group because you don't think your thoughts are worthy of saying out loud. It's undervaluing yourself and your perspective. And giving a pitch can definitely make you feel vulnerable. You might feel that your audience is scrutinizing or judging your ideas. And it's entirely possible that you'll get some really challenging questions. Imposter syndrome is real, and almost every entrepreneur feels it at some point in their journey. So if you find yourself feeling any of those things I described before, it's totally normal. You're not alone. Work on reframing this type of thinking when you start to feel it. So your background, your culture, your lived experiences, all of those things are an asset to your business. They're not a weakness. Someone who is actively learning and growing is not a fraud. To the contrary, I think it means that you're adaptable and open to growth. Those are two things a good entrepreneur should never lose. Also, another thing you could do is keep track of your successes, no matter how big or small, and remind yourself of them just to gain some of that perspective. Because I think we, especially as business leaders, we can really get caught in the weeds of our day-to-day challenges. We all have to step out of the weeds from time to time and just remember like, oh, but I got that contract last year and I'm still in business and it's 2 years, or I was able to hire 1 or 2 people, or I'm like providing jobs. Like, remember those small things that you have done when you start getting weighed down by all the things that are making you sad. And then another one is just affirmations, practicing affirmations, saying things to yourself like, I am capable, I am resourceful, I am resilient. Or there's one that we posted on our socials the other day. It's from, I have a poster of it behind me, by Jacqueline Russell. And I don't know if she still does Grown Up Navajo, but she read a poem once at one of our Change Labs events. And one of the lines in the poem was, the work I'm doing will be felt by more than me. I think that's a great affirmation to remind yourself why you do what you do, especially if you're you're feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome. Another could be like, I'm disciplined, focused, committed to my goals. Any of these affirmations can help beat back some of that negative self-talk that might emerge when you're getting into pitch mode. Okay, let's recap. I'm hoping this is what you all have taken from today. Thoughtfully and mindfully craft your pitch. Make it relevant to your audience. Practice, 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 blah, 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 to build confidence. It's a learn by doing exercise. You're not just, if you don't practice, it's going to be hard for you to learn. And then make today actionable. What I'm suggesting here is record yourself pitching on your phone and watch yourself. It's going to be painful, but just do it. Or pitch to a friend, somebody that you trust, somebody who's safe for you, and have them give you some feedback. And of course, our Change Labs coaches that Raquel kind of scrolled through at the beginning, all of us love giving feedback on pitches. So I'd like to think that we're a safe space. You could always book a coaching appointment with us, and we'd love to listen to your pitch and give feedback. So that was what I had prepared. Does anybody have any questions? Or, I mean, we have a lot of small business owners. If anybody wants to share their own experience on pitching or just their own thoughts for the group, there's space, we have time. Okay, so I'm looking in the chat. Albert says it's direct message to me, so I don't know if I should be reading it out loud, but I read it. I feel like it's pretty clean. He says his challenge is creating a compelling, accurate projection of revenue. Not sure if that's required in the pitch. I think it depends on the pitch and who your audience is. If it's an audience where your revenue is going to be important, then I think it's absolutely relevant. So I'm thinking like anybody who you're asking for money from, they want to know that the business is sustainable. So it's always a good idea to show revenue or projection of revenue when you're talking to a funder. But maybe if you're talking to a potential partner, that might be less relevant. So my answer to that, Albert, I don't know if you were asking me a question or not, but is it depends on who your target audience is. Sorry, I cut somebody off. I'll be quiet for a second.
No, that was me. No worries.
Did I answer your question, Albert?
Yes, I think, yeah, because that's just a challenge I run into sometimes, just like whether to include a potential revenue or just focus on my quote unquote mission statement.
Yeah, I understand that. Is there a specific audience that you had in mind? Maybe we could all troubleshoot a little.
I think so. I have one for like general and then one for investors that I have to work with.
Investors, I would say, always include some sort of financials and projections as well. Mackenzie, go ahead.
For me, I was just kind of because this past summer I did robotics and I was trying to find a location and help with we went down to a competition and I did ask different organizations that were more local, like here on Hopi, and I never got a response back from them. So like, what would you recommend to do if you're sending out your, I guess your email pitch, and I wrote like a letter and things like that, but I'm not even sure if they were looked at or anything like that. And I was just kind of wondering what would you do if you don't get any response back?
This was to a potential funder?
Yeah, because we were looking for sponsors to fund our competition and like to go to the meets and things like that. And that was under my small business, like it's out like out of school opportunities that I do.
Yes.
So that's what and then I know that well, I think I know I reached out to you, but it wasn't underneath your, what would you call it? The mission of what Change Labs does. And I understand that part. And I didn't know that when I first did it, when I reached out to Change Labs, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So then I started looking for organizations that do have the same type of mission that I do. And that was pretty helpful. But even though I did reach out to some of the ones that do have a similar mission statement, like there's this like base for education, I didn't get any response. And I was just kind of wondering, what do you do? Do you just leave it, or would you do another one in a different way? Or
it's a good question. So I don't have all the details, but so for everybody else, we're talking about, or I think she's saying, or the experience that I had with this was, and it's not just with Mackenzie, it's with a lot of organizations reach out to us for sponsorship. So we get sent information like a soft pitch. I would say that pitching to somebody for sponsorship over email is a soft pitch. It's totally normal, by the way. We do that at Change Labs all the time. But doing things over email is the best way to not get a response. And I remember the number one thing that I learned from a sales coach back in the day is that the whole goal of sales is to get to a yes or a no as quickly as possible. You never want to just be living in the maybe territory or the murky or the I don't know. That is a waste of your time as a business owner. Get to yes or get to no. Email, unfortunately, is the land of maybes because maybe they didn't get the email. Maybe they haven't opened it yet. Maybe they read it and it's a no, but they didn't even bother responding. There's just so many opportunities for maybe. I would say if you really want to know, and this information may not be available, but call them and get to that yes or that no quickly. And we all know that, especially when you're asking for sponsorships or you're pitching for money, you're probably going to get no more often than you're going to get yes. And that, again, I feel like if you go into it with that mindset, that's helpful when you do get a no, or at least it is for me. So Mackenzie, I don't know if that was helpful or not, but that's my 2 cents.
Hey, this is Nick. I just wanted to say, I kind of look at it as like from opposite way. So I look at it from the back and we should close, like should be ready for that point. If it's pulling up their card information and taking all that, but be ready for that point and just like you can go on and on about, but if they're ready, because people are busy, and just do that pitch real quick and then be ready to close. I think closing is the main part of that whole deal. And then also with the lady and her slide, way back when we're showing that, I think just the thing is examples. So like in hand or I don't know, just previewing just really quick, but she should have showed more people maybe that it was going towards the vehicle and gonna help more people and stuff like that. But yeah, I think closing is the main part with just being ready for it because they're ready to make a decision too on the other end. They're just waiting. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Nick. Albert, you have your hand up?
So this is my last question, and I guess this is for anyone who doesn't have their idea fully realized. So I'm currently looking to pitch a video game idea. And the problem is I don't have a resume of past things I developed like that sort of thing. I have experience in developing products, apps, and I've done art, but I've never done game development. And what would you recommend for someone who's trying to build a pitch for something they don't have a resume of, I guess you could say, experience of?
This is my take, but I'm sure everybody on this call, actually, please do, everybody, let's type some ideas for Albert in the chat window. But I'll tell you, Albert, that the investor types that I know, again, going back to like Uber and Airbnb, yeah, I said it right. There are lots of entrepreneurs out there who have no experience building these businesses because those things have never existed before. And in that sense, I do feel like investors are looking for somebody who has demonstrated that they are able to successfully complete something, that they are internally motivated, that they can drive something forward. I think those qualities are far more important and compelling than, well, this person has built a game before. Just because you know how to build a game doesn't mean that you know how to build a team, or you know how to market the game, or you know how to build a website to like house the game. You guys know, there's so many aspects of running a business. You want to see somebody who's an entrepreneur, somebody who can kind of like figure out how to do it all and put it all together. You're a planner, you're an organizer, you get things done. That's far more important, at least to me, than like well, I've built a game, therefore I'm going to build a game company. That's my 2 cents.
I agree with Heather. I am a finance accountant person, but I took a risk 3 years ago on an athlete. I did pro bono sponsor endorsement work for him first year and took a risk because I wanted to learn how to do work with professional athletes, and we still are partners working. He's an INFR world champion, so it was cool that he's like, okay, let's do this. I said, I'll help you. Then the next year he paid me. And then this year he paid me. And we increased his sponsorship year over year. And we pulled each other's resources. And then this current year, I do have an athlete that I just signed 2 weeks ago just to do the financials and slowly work into the endorsement contracts. And I'm learning. So every other day, I'm like reading contracts, understanding the sports management part. And I think it's when you know what you want to learn, Albert, you'll get it. I wouldn't be afraid to do it, tap into that industry because you have a lot of other potentials and it matches. It just kind of correlated. It'll correlate in a matchup. So that was the fun part. But I consider like the professional athletes, it's business for them. It's small businesses. And to educate for me to push to be a client for me, I reeled it in by, are you doing it as a W4 or a W9? Now, if you go W9 and do small business, we can write off every single deduction when you're rodeo traveling. And so that's where I found a little small market that I'm trying to tap into now too. So from learning that pro bono work 3 years ago, from here now, I'm able to sign an athlete to do that. And that's kind of like a learning lesson. And that's just, it builds in. So I wouldn't be worried about other adventures. A lot of these small business owners might be really good at a second part of the businesses. Tap into those and just learn and read and study and research. And I feel like Change Lab really helped me push that and encourage me in doing what I'm doing today.
Vanessa, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I think my problem is that I don't know who to reach out to request funding because, with this whole federal administration and the budget impacts on the state Medicaid program, that it directly affects my work. And I just don't know where to go for funding.
Yeah, sorry, that sounded very unempathetic, and that wasn't my intent. I feel like we need a workshop on Native grant funding sources. And in fact, our colleague Anawa Haynes at Hojonago Institute just launched a Native grant finder platform last week at Res. I need to find the link, but she's basically trying to create a service that aggregates a lot of grants that are specific to Native people so that it becomes a little bit easier for us to find grants. But does anybody else from Change Labs have any thoughts for Vanessa?
Yeah, I stopped by their booth last week, and I'm trying to transition my company to be nonprofit. And so I'm going through those steps with an organization down here in Phoenix. So it's the same organization that Jordana Saunders works with. So she put me in contact with them and I attended their session. But like, I'm just really, really scared at this point. It's just, I'm completely stressed out and any bit of advice would help. Thank you.
It is a scary time. I hate to build on it, but we were talking at our staff meeting on Monday about the executive order to minimize CDFIs and minimize the Minority Business Development Association. The SBA has already been minimized. One of our main partners, Native Community Capital, has had to pause small business lending. So it is a scary time. I can tell you, I know this probably isn't that helpful, but our loan program is solid. It's not impacted by everything going on at the federal government level, but it is scary. I do think we're just going to see probably less resources available to Native-owned businesses in the coming months, maybe even years. And I wish I could say something more cheerful than that, but yeah, it's just a really strange time. If anybody knows of resources please do put them in the chat window. All right, thanks, Nick. Oh yes, please do go to Nick's print shop. We've used him for some things and the work is always fantastic. Mackenzie, you have your hand raised.
I was just gonna mention, I'm not sure who was talking. Just now I didn't see a name, so sorry, but I'm also in the process of trying to change my organization. I have a LLC to a nonprofit, and what it is a lot of things that are just I feel like it's all different information sometimes. But what I did is I asked another organization if they could be a fiscal sponsor, and they agreed. So they're going to help me to learn how to write grants and to be able to start to the nonprofit process at a slower pace for me, because it's just me by myself. I don't have any employees or a board or anything like that. And I think those are the things that were scaring me. But then now that I have this opportunity to do the fiscal sponsorship with this other organization that is a nonprofit, they're willing to work with me and guide me like as a mentor. And I think that I just barely started. Like I didn't even do anything with it yet. So I'm really glad that it kind of took a load off of my mind, because now I have someone to help take care of me in the process. So that's some advice that I can give to the individual that spoke earlier. I don't know if this is a route that you want to try.
And I believe we're inviting Arizona fiscal sponsor to do a workshop at Change Labs sometime in July or August, I believe is when we've penciled them in. So if you're anyone on this call is considering the nonprofit route and wants to learn more about fiscal sponsorship, we should have that workshop coming up. Well, everybody, this has been fun. We are at time. Thank you all for joining. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for typing in the chat. I hope to see some of you pitch for us on July 11th. And we'd love to send you all an invitation to the grand opening of the Shiprock Hub. And if any of you are in the Shiprock area and you want to talk about ideas for the eShip Hub, you should definitely hit us up. We're looking for resources in the area. All right. Thanks, everybody. What is it, Tuesday? Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see you in the next workshop.